Hi there. Welcome to Project One Supply and Demand by me, Rennick Steiner, and Pokemon. So let's get into it. Now, what is supply and demand? Supply and demand is the idea explaining how the prices of goods and services are determined in any market. The supply is the amount of goods or services that producers are willing to sell at different prices, and the demand is the amount of goods or services that consumers are willing to buy or not buy. Now, why is supply and demand important? Well, supply and demand is one of the most important economic concepts because it's been consistent since medieval times. Supply and demand influences prices, production, and how available the producer's goods and services are. In other words, it explains how an economy works. So let's talk about the laws of supply and demand. The law of supply states that if prices increase, producers are willing to supply more. And if prices decrease, producers want to supply less. Now, the law of demand states that if prices increase, then the amount demanded decreases. And if the prices decrease, then the amount demanded increases. I've got a little graph up top right to help you understand that one. All right, but let's get a little bit more detailed. Let's talk about what is the equilibrium. The market equilibrium is where producers and consumers meet in the middle and agree with the price. In other words, buyers pay for what sellers are selling as it is a fair price. If prices move away from this equilibrium, it could result in prices being too high, which causes a surplus, or prices being too low, which causes a shortage. Now, I know we're all wondering, why is Pikachu here? How does he have anything to do with supply and demand? Well, this is how I relate it to my field. In some video games, there are economic markets that are run by players. They're called player-driven markets. Supply and demand becomes very relevant in these player-driven markets for practical reasons for the players. An article I found from Time Saver states that supply and demand set price. No item has an intrinsic value. A divine orb, a meta ammo box, or a stack of WoW herbs is worth exactly what the current market will bear. And that number moves with patches, metas, and player behavior. Now, let's move on to an in-game example to get a little bit more information. Here we have the global trade link. It's also known as the GTL. And it's from the game Pokemmo, which is a Pokemon game. And you'll notice this has very similarities to a stock market. And you might see the prices there, but don't worry. It's all in-game currency called Pokeyen. It's not USD. Now you're going to also see a bunch of green arrows and red arrows showing prices increasing and decreasing. Green means the price is increased, and red means the price is decreased. It's just the same as the stock market. Now, these price changes are based on the last hour, last day, and last 7 days. So you can see all the percentages from those time periods. And the item's values are determined by the players for many different reasons. You'll see the rare candies there give one whole level to a Pokemon, which players value highly, so they price it highly. But let's move on because we're still wondering, how does Pikachu factor into all this? Well, Pikachu here is also on the GTL. And once again, just to clarify, this is not USD, this is all Pokeyen. But now you can see here that there are many Pikachus, and they're all worth different amounts here. These costs are due to many different reasons, including the rarity, the strength, and the effectiveness of this Pokemon. And you'll also notice the supply of the Pikachus is players catching and or breeding these Pikachus to sell on the GTL, and the demand is the players who want Pikachus for battling, collecting, or just completing their Pokédex. So, I just like to say that these player-driven markets are not just important because I plan on making them in the future, but because I'm a part of these communities and I truly enjoy it. Before I even understood what supply and demand was, these games were putting these concepts into my head so that I could understand them better and enjoy them for their simplicity. Supply and demand is such a simple concept, so when we teach it in a way that is simple, it becomes fun and easy. In conclusion, the concept of supply and demand is present in many games and is similar to the concept of supply and demand in real life economic markets and can be studied as such. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for your time. I hope this clarified the concepts of supply and demand and how they are represented in the video game environment. Thank you.